to everybody. I am Izzy Lawrence here with magnificent Dr. Dave Hone, and he's actually here. Look, I can touch his face. I can touch his face. We are Terrible Lizards Podcast. We are here to answer all of your amazing dinosaur questions, aren't we, Dave?
We'll try.
So let us know. We should be able. We've got comments up already. We've got this from Metaphil. Any chance of an eventual dinosaur or pterosaur public lecture at the Smithsonian in Washington DC, Dave?
Well, in some ways you're way behind because I've now done 3. So the Smithsonian members group thing, they do talks online. So if you're a Smithsonian member, I've done 3 talks for them, including one recently for the dinosaur behaviour book. Actual public in-person talk, as soon as they invite me, I will happily go over. But the obvious problem is I doubt they're going to make a lot of money if they have to fly me over from the UK and put me up for a few days just to talk for an hour. I'm not sure they're going to get their money's worth.
I think they would. Don't understand yourself.
Yes. So we will see. It's the. I mean, just to say, I get a bunch of questions like this. I know we get a bunch of questions like this going, can you come and give a talk here? Can you come and go there? And this is always the problem. Is like, I mean, we don't have. We did one trip to Oxford once, and that cost us quite a lot of money. We're not just going to randomly turn up in
fine.
Like Texas, or someone had said, "Oh, when you come into Argentina," it's like, well, we're not. Let's be honest. I'm sorry.
We made at least a tenner each on the Oxford.
Yeah,
we
made
at least a tenner each. Don't listen to him.
Having organised it, so yes. If you're, I mean, I can do them online. So if you know someone who knows someone, ask them to invite me, and we will see what happens. In terms of turning up physically, a bit harder.
So we've got people from listening all over the place. We've got Taiwan. We've got some saying hello, Dave. We've got South Africa. More importantly, just Merry Christmas, and hello from Cheltenham.
Oh, excellent!
Which is just down the road. We're currently in the Ding. This is what Reading looks like here in the UK. And
Overcast.
I've got to have a look at Patreon to find out Klaus's question. So just give us a second. It says, "Hey Dave and Izzy, first off, I finished uncovering dinosaur behaviour on Audible and gave it a most deserving 5-star review." That's just too nice. It was a great listen. You can also listen to The Unstoppable Letty Peg and Blackbeard's Treasure on Audible by Izzy Lawrence. Anyway, please more grey literature. Those aren't that. It also made me think about here we go, Alvarezsauridae.
Alvarezsauroidea, yes.
Yes, and the fact that they did not make it past the KT extinction. Were they really that different to small mammals who make it maybe more parental care or burrowing that gave them the edge? I would love your thoughts on that. Alvarezsaurs, for those listening, they're the little ones with the little clawy things and like...
Yeah, again, more annoying, less dinosaur answering. Don't know. I mean, I'm certain I've said before. Yes, the dinosaurs obviously went extinct, but when you look at least some of the very small feathered dinosaurs, they were really not dissimilar to some of the birds that survived. So quite what did for them or what the difference was could just be down to serendipity. Alvarezsaurs, they weren't burrowing. At least I very, very, very much doubt it, which again, some small mammals were, and things like this. My guess what was probably their biggest problem is they were mostly desert animals, or at least those kinds of big open environments. And of course, that means you tend to have relatively low populations. Of course, you're kind of vulnerable when things start to go wrong. So that was probably not good for them. Although we do have lots of them, again, we tend to find them in these desert environments, which are very good for preserving things. So we're probably finding more of them than, they appear to be much more common than they really were compared to a lot of other things. But yeah, quite what did or didn't do for them, I don't know. But they're a group we haven't studied that much, to be honest.
No, but you love them.
I can see what you're doing.
I know. I've got this because this is a lovely pterosaur. So scientifically accurate, guys. So perfect. Look at this, annoying him. But Nick Saunders on Patreon asks, would pterosaurs have shared any behaviours or similarities with modern birds, or would they have been completely different as far as we can tell? I thought that's a good question. We've done a few episodes on pterosaurs if you're interested.
Yes. I mean, a bit of both. Certainly in terms of nesting behaviour, they appear to be building nests completely differently. Pterosaurs appear to be doing stuff much more like modern crocodilians. So it's going to be a bit of a hole dug in the ground with some leaves and stuff like this. So, that's going to be a very different case. They're not going to be brooding, which of course most birds do. So in that side of things, the behaviour is going to be very different. But when it comes to things like general patterns of flight, probably very similar. Aerodynamics are pretty similar, even if you're a very, very big pterosaur, like Quetzalcoatlus and Pteranodon and stuff like this. Your flying mechanics are still going to be fundamentally relatively similar. Like what things generate lift, where you tend to get lots of wind, stuff like the ground wing effect and stuff like this is all going to be the same. It doesn't matter how big you are, or at least relatively little matters how big you are, and all the rest of it. So absolutely with things like, soaring behaviors or things like dynamic soaring and stuff like this, they're going to be pretty similar. And again, catching food, if you're one of the filter feeding pterosaurs, you're probably acting a lot like a flamingo. If you're one of the kind of more predatory pterosaurs, you're probably not acting like modern raptors because they're catching stuff with their feet, which of course pterosaurs can't do because their feet aren't built that way and their wings are fundamentally linked to their feet. So they're going to, when an osprey or an eagle or a peregrine kind of does that, that's completely independent of the wings. So the wings are doing one thing and the legs are doing something else. Pterosaurs can't do that. Some things are going to be very, very similar. Some things are going to be very, very different.
I think that this is something that you can make a lot of people's dreams come true.
Oh, God.
Which is, I wish Dave to say Flappy Flap for Christmas. It would be a Christmas miracle.
Well, we're past Christmas now, so it wouldn't be a Christmas miracle, would it, if I said Flappy Flap?
We got an invite, not officially, to the Cheltenham Science Festival. If the Cheltenham Science Festival organisers are watching, I'm open to it.
Yeah, ditto. It's the same kind of thing. So things like Cheltenham Science Festival, I've been once in all the years. It's quite
like
hard
times.
Right, but in terms of things like, I've been invited to give a talk, yes, but in terms of like having a stand, you generally have to be invited, or if you want to invite yourself, you need like a whole plan and a whole budget. And certainly the problem I've run into is I'm kind of on my own at my university, as in, but like, but I don't have several colleagues who work on my stuff. I don't have a lab. I don't have PhD students. And so the one time I did go, I basically roped some friends into doing it, but I can't sit at a stall 7-8 hours a day for 3 days on my own. So you need kind of a team and a support around you, and then obviously the cost of several people traveling and several people staying for several days and all the things that go into that. So it does make it very difficult for me to do things like that. It's very easy for me to turn up and talk for an hour or two. It's very hard to like run an event, unfortunately. But yes, again, if you know someone who you're on the committee at the Cheltenham Science Festival, I'm very interested in coming and talking or doing something.
We've got a question here from, which one? I wanted to find the one about illnesses, because that was a good one. Gynoraptor 2021 says, going to put this out there before tons of questions come in, but can you discuss dinosaur illness and disease? Could dinosaurs get cancer? And this is also going to, from my perspective, adds to this question here from Landa. So, could
not sure how those fit together.
I'll tell you how they fit together.
Okay. Disease, yes. So we do have evidence of diseases. We have what's called pathology, so damages and injuries, which obviously we're only ever usually seeing on the bone, but they're linked to underlying things like an injury followed by an infection. We see evidence of stuff like arthritis because that can affect bones. There's some nasty parasites leave damages and holes on bones, so there's a few of them. There's one dinosaur, I want to say it was a ceratopsian, even a centrosaur from a few years ago. That is a centrosaurus, styracosaurus, that was described from Canada that had, I will say, bone growth consistent with it being a cancer. So yeah, I'm sure. But again, like, this is one of these things where pretty much all animals, or at least all vertebrates, can get something like cancer. Big animals tend to be more vulnerable to it because they fundamentally got more cells, undergoing more cell division, so there's more chance of an error occurring. It would be very, very, very weird indeed if dinosaurs didn't. And indeed, we do have some evidence that they did.
But this is as close as I could get to an Alphasaurus, because it's the only one with slightly bigger arms.
I was going to say it looks like Metabarosaurus.
It's Metabarosaurus, is it? Well, Allosaurus, right? purpose for their arms. Because the thing is, they couldn't toke a cigarette, 'cause obviously, but they could roll them. That's what I'm thinking, and that would explain. Like, obviously, dinosaurs didn't get that sort of
Would
cancer.
explain
Explain everything because Allosaurus could do rollies.
I don't know why I come here.
You get food.
Yeah, and anything more? Not from what I've said in the past. I still find it a bit odd. I still don't think it's entirely clear and obvious what they're doing. I agree they must have been important, otherwise expect them to reduce like the derived ceratosaurs and like the tyrannosaurs, but I still find it a bit of an odd combination.
This is a good question. Got a good question for you. This is from Zoe. So why are there very limited, if any, decent fossils of Spinosaurus? Why? Because we bombed it in the war.
Well, that explains why we lost one. Several bits of inverted commas Spinosaurus B and some other stuff. I don't know. I would say I did a talk at the Royal Institution on Spinosaurs, and then this was a question that got asked in the question bit at the end, which I think they put up as a separate video. But I ended up talking about it for quite a bit in that. And then if you don't know, my next book coming out at some indeterminate point in 2025, because we don't have a date yet, but the manuscript is in and approved by the publisher, is coming out, that I've written with Mark Whitten. And yeah, we talk about it in there, and the answer is don't know. It is a bit odd. As big carnivores are generally quite rare. But as big carnivores that had an awful lot of teeth, though admittedly we do find a lot of teeth, but are probably hanging around a lot in water, which is that in like estuaries and lakes and the sort of places where you get lots of burial and lots of preservation, it's weird how rare they are. As in, we keep finding lots of bits, but getting whole skeletons is quite unusual. So there is something odd about them. It could still just be chance at this point. We simply haven't found that much. We haven't been digging for them that much. They don't turn up in that many places. If you give it another 20 years or another 50 years, it could be we're going to get a really good collection of them, and they'll end up being as well known or well understood as Allosaurus or Albertosaurus or something like that, where we've got a very good number of good skeletons.
I think I found,
but I don't know.
Allosaur because of the crests.
I think that's supposed to be Dilophosaurus because it's
reckon?
got
Okay.
Because these are shunky as hell.
How dare you, sir? It's my personal little dinosaur collection. All right then. I like the fact that in Spinosaurus you got loads of their noses. So it's just the noses that survive.
Yeah, we get lots of snouts.
Yeah,
and lots of mandibles.
Yeah, but not many arms. Okay, so shall we do? Oh, this one's good.
Okay.
So this is from Saurian CYH. I have a question for both of you. How do you decide which artists to commission illustrations for your publications? And what's it like working with an artist for the first time? Can I answer it first, Dave? Because you've spoken for ages and I can actually answer this. So for my books, which include the Time Machine Next Door books, that's a good one to go with because it's Rebecca Badley. What? No, that's Sidney Spice.
And I was going to try. I was trying to promo you, but it's the wrong one.
Yeah, no, it's the wrong ones. I could hang on. Look. Magic. I can actually get up and show you things. Look. So what? I could get one of yours.
It's annoying you saw that.
So there you go. There is a beautiful dinosaur there. That is Wiki the Kiwi. But anyway, yeah. So these are done by Rebecca Bagley. What happens is your publisher goes, we've got these amazing illustrators for you to choose from, and they'll show you people who've never picked up a pencil in their life. And they'll show you Rebecca Bagley, and so you're just like, I'm going to have Rebecca Bagley. And what's great is they sort of like, you give details of like, what to do and how to draw people exactly as you want them. And usually that doesn't get filtered through to the publishers, and they just basically go, don't do that, just do whatever you like. Except me and Rebecca are friends on Instagram, so I send her the exact things I want and she does them, and she's amazing. So other than that, your turn.
For me, it's vaguely similar in that, as the author much say in these kinds of things. So yeah, things like the title and the cover and the illustrator and things like this. You have input, you rarely have final say. So in the case of the Tyrannosaur book, I wanted Scott Hartman because what I wanted at the time was a whole bunch of skeleton drawings, and that's what I really needed. And Scott had at that time, he was like the guy with a collection of these online. And so that was a fairly easy decision. I didn't really have an illustrator for the Future of Dinosaurs because it's much more photographs. For the dinosaur behaviour book, Gabriel Agurto was pretty much my first choice, partly because I knew him, partly because I knew he did a lot of good stuff, partly because having worked with him, I knew he would kind of work to my spec, and also he didn't need much kind of guidance, because some people really know their way around some animals and some people don't, or they don't know quite what you mean, etc. And also, he could do the sort of stuff we wanted in the sort of time frame we wanted, which not everyone can do. I've certainly had offers or deals with people which have just fallen through because basically scheduling conflicts. I'm already booked up to do these things, so I can't do that unless you can add 6 months or a year onto the deadline. And then the Spinosaur book with Mark, we were discussing doing a Tyrannosaur book together because of a research project we were working on. We pitched that to a publisher and they said, no, but how about Spinosaurs? And it's like, well, actually, okay. And so it was largely that is that we'd got together for something else and then it went this way. And then for individual papers, it varies massively. I have friends who've contacted me and said, I know you're working on this, can I draw it for you? I've had cases where I might still be the lead. So, for example, Gabriel did the Scyphosaurus illustration, but my colleagues on the paper from the Lauer Foundation said, we want this illustrated, who would you recommend? And Gabriel had been quizzing me about all the pterosaur stuff I was doing, so it's like, well, it's kind of easy to ask him at this point when he's already doing this other stuff, but then Sky McDavid had asked to do the other illustration. So a lot of it is serendipity. Working with people for the first time, if you've never worked with them before, you learn what they can and can't do, certainly without naming any names, mostly because I can't remember. Years ago, I was one of like 40, 50 authors on one of those big like all-in books. And yeah, I think whoever they picked to do the artwork may have heard that prehistoric animals existed, but that might have been the limit. Well, when you said, so they threatened to kick me off the book at one point because I wrote back for one of the illustrations I was supposed to look at and said, start again. Every single bit of it is wrong. And it's easy, and I've had this conversation with a couple of people and go, oh, you're being really mean, da-da-da-da. Okay, I think most people who even don't know anything about animals know that probably they should have the same number of fingers on each hand. Maybe you've got that number wrong and you think T-Rex has 3 and not 2. That's a mistake. But if you draw an animal with 3 fingers on one hand and 4 on the other, it does suggest you're a bit lacking in basic anatomy. Detail. Yeah, and when we've sent you a photo and said, note 3 fingers on hand, and then you draw 3 on one and 4 on the other, I'm not sure they're the best pick.
Sometimes they could have been doing this, Dave. I want to, just to annoy Dave, because I tried and annoy Dave as much as possible, I gave him this mug to drink out of with it. It's a T-Rex look, and that's got 3 fingers. So that didn't bother you at all, did it, Dave?
First thing I said.
Yes.
Then I started counting the teeth.
Talking of T-Rex, why did T-Rex have those extra lower ribs? Did they?
Oh, I think them talking about gastralia, so what are called the belly ribs.
Oh yeah.
That run down the front. Lots of dinosaurs have them. They're just really, really massive in the bigger and later tyrannosaurs. Why they're in the bigger and later tyrannosaurs is very unclear, because you have got comparably sized and weighted. It's not just T-Rex. There's a bunch of big tyrannosaurs have them. So things like Albertosaurus and Gorgosaurus have not as big, but certainly big, robust gastralia. And they're a fraction of the size of, or at least they're comparable to Allosaurus, and they're a fraction of the size of things like Giganotosaurus and Mapusaurus, which don't appear to have these. So what's going on with Tyrannosaur chests? I don't think anyone's had any serious suggestions, and I've certainly never thought of anything that I think might be a plausible explanation that would be testable. So I do not know.
Oh, yeah, it's most of paleontology. But we got a question here from Kay Reed on our Patreon. Thank you very much to patrons for Patreoning. Many animals have adaptations for water intake. Texas horned lizards is an extreme example. Are there any dinosaurs that would have not have been able to drink water from the ground due to their body shape or mouth shape? Do we know anything about Slurpees?
I mean, I can imagine something like a brachiosaur, which is already a very tall animal, and then we think has a relatively upright neck posture, is actually, oh God, that's awful, isn't it? Is potentially going to struggle to get the head to ground level. So that at least is perhaps one. Though again, you don't really know. Funny, someone had written a book about dinosaur behaviour, but often we don't really know what almost any individual species is doing or what it's capable of and what the adaptations might be. So yeah, maybe they're tending to favour wetter habitats where they can get a lot of dew off the leaves in the morning, or they're eating very wet plants, or maybe they're really good at water recycling, which has really helped. Or maybe they just are hanging around in areas that are quite wet and they regularly wade at least a bit into water, so now the head doesn't need to come down quite that far. Like, there's just so many possibilities, and picking between them without
we've definitely
a pretty good understanding of the biology is more or less impossible. You got them wading and stuff like that.
Definitely going through mud.
Yeah, so
they could have been like going all the way up to there, could just go.
Yeah, I mean,
then wading all the way
it's absolutely possible and plausible that animals like that, which might struggle to drink, or animals that were living in desert environments and there's loads of them, or living on coasts where unless you're right next to a river, there's loads of water around but you probably don't want to drink it, are doing that sort of thing. Any specific examples? You might be able to start getting something out of the isotope ratios from evaporites from water. We've done that for some things, but it's pretty hard to do.
That's so cool.
But again, but that's the problem. These are select animals we've started to do that for, which if that particular species, or if it's isolated bit of teeth and bone, you don't exactly know what it came from, doesn't necessarily tell you very much, unfortunately.
I don't know what this is a reference to, but I'm going to ask you in case you do. So, opinions of the mummified Edmontosaurus specimen?
Well, there's not one, there's loads.
Okay.
There's like the famous one who's called...
They're a type of hadrosaur, aren't they?
Yeah. So Edmontosaurus is a really big hadrosaur from North America. There's definitely more than one, or at least there's a couple of Brachylophosaurus or something like that, which are fundamentally really quite similar. I don't quite know what you mean by opinions on. Parasaurolophus.
There's a hadrosaur. It's the closest I had. There we
go. Yeah, I mean, they exist. They're dead animals where they've at least partially dried out, and so the organs are decaying, but the skin is still there. We find loads of bits of hadrosaur skin. I've turned some up in bits of Asia and North America. That's not so uncommon, and so these just tend to be really exaggerated versions of that. But there are multiple hadrosaur mummies, some of which are very, very good and give you some really good details. I don't know what sort of opinion I'm required. They're great.
There you go. That's an opinion, isn't it?
They have some important information. I think they're asking about. There's one whose nickname escapes me, which was annoyingly like the subject of a documentary, and someone even wrote a book about it, and yet still hasn't actually been formally described. Right. And while it's a very, very cool one, if it's the one I'm thinking, well, if it is the one I'm thinking of, how much it actually adds to our knowledge, given how many other decent hadrosaur mummies we've already got, I don't know.
Okay. So we've got, here's one from James.
Yep.
What is the most surprising thing you've learned over all the years about prehistoric animals? What's the most surprising thing, Dave? I'd say how big they were, to be honest. That is surprising. I mean, it's not surprising because we know it, but not even even wombats.
Yeah.
Sloths.
It's hard, yeah, because I'm so clouded with hindsight of now literally a couple of decades of doing this sort of thing. Something that probably surprised me then doesn't surprise me now, or I've forgotten that it used to surprise me. Yeah, pretty much experienced I'd go for, rather than aged.
Okay.
Yeah, before you say it. I think what mostly surprises me now is less the actual... Often it's not even the science or the discoveries. It's the process of the discovery, by which I mean, it turns out we can work that out. So something like colour, is always my go-to example of something I thought we were never going to be able to work out, and then someone worked out that you can work it out. Some of the mass estimate stuff, because I played around with a lot in my masters, in my early PhD work, and all of the methods looked a bit ropey, and it was not obvious how we're going to do anything much, much better than some fairly simple correlates or back of the envelope calculations that just got further and further apart as you went up in scale or had more fragmentary material. And now some of the better scaling stuff that's come in and volumetric analyses really do appear to be very accurate indeed based on comparisons to living animals and some other things. And so it's like that stuff tends to be a surprise that you can develop the kind of information that I thought we couldn't. Though one of my big complaints in the dinosaur behaviour book is that we often tend to do that once and then go, oh, we can do it now, so it's not interesting anymore, we'll go and do something different. And it's like, no, but now we know how to apply that method. Be really useful if we went and applied it to all these different things, then we might do something a bit more with it.
Yeah, it would be.
So yeah. That's a really good question. I'm struggling for a better answer. Oh, sorry.
I mean, don't apologise. I think you're doing great, Dave. I think I've done that one with the pterosaur.
Done all of those.
Have we done all of those? We can, yes. Guys. You can continue to answer questions. I'm just I'm having a look at our
Instagram.
Our Instagram, see what it says there. Sitting in McDonald's with my toy Monolophosaurus right now. Amazing. Excellent. That's good. Food is always a good bribe. Brilliant. I love listening to your podcast. Yeah, they're just being nice. I mean, what's the point of being nice?
It's very unhelpful.
When you could ask us anybody. Here's one from Armando. Here we go. Do we have any evidence of domestication within Mesozoic animals like that between ants and fungi? Ants and fungi love hanging out, guys. They're just like... Actually, ants and aphids also. They hang. Ants are quite the farming critters.
And ants have done it with fungi multiple times as well. There's multiple independent lineages have done this. No is the short version, though. Of course, this sort of thing's really rare. Yeah, pretty much outside of ants, or at least
clownfish with anemones.
Yeah, sort of. It's one of those things. Like, how would you even know? I mean, even if we could somehow detect multiple records of a certain kind of fungi, because the fungal fossil record is almost non-existent, and all the rest of it, even if we kept finding species of dinosaur A with fungi B, how do we actually know or even be able to reliably hypothesize what the actual relationship was? And because it's like, well, maybe that dinosaur feeds on that fungi, so it keeps seeking out patches of that fungi. Maybe there was some kind of intimate relationship, but you wouldn't know. But again, based on what we see with living species, I'd really, really doubt it. This kind of thing is super, super rare once you get into vertebrates. I mean, I'm struggling to think of any really reliable example now, let alone then something that might work with dinosaurs. So no evidence for it. I don't think you're ever going to find it, but it's the sort of thing that may not have ever existed.
Oh. I think, isn't there something about crows following wolves around?
Yeah, but they're not exactly farming them. No. But there are. So one I mentioned in the book. There's I want to say it was Ethiopian wolves were hanging around with a brown hyena. There's a scientific paper on this for like weeks or even months, where there appeared to be a genuine multi-species pack that operated together and cooperatively hunted together, which is really, really cool. But yeah, again, how would you even begin to try and work this out? You need a whole series of exceptional fossils showing some kind of mass burial of these always being together. Yeah,
lots of photos.
Right, but then again, how do you know it's not just them following around in the way that vultures can follow lions, and so that's why they tend to be preserved together and stuff like this. So yeah, it can exist, and we could work it out even if we had a brilliant fossil record. I think of very, very different things, unfortunately.
Amazing. Okay, so this is a question we get asked a lot, and I can't remember. Did we do a bonus episode on it or not?
We did do Prehistoric Planet 1.
We didn't do 2 properly.
No, we never did 2 because I've still only seen about half of it. Yeah, I know it took because I didn't have Apple TV, and then I got access and watched half of the second one in a weekend to try and get through it all in the weekend that I had access to it. And then, apologies, I never actually finished it off. So it's really kind of hard to talk about something I haven't seen and can't easily get hold of to see. What I saw of it was great. It's the same as Prehistoric Planet 1, and I mean that in no derogatory way, absolutely, because it's brilliant. Yeah. But a series review would consist of me saying, yep, that's really accurate. Yes, we've got fossils that show that. No, we don't have fossils that show that, but it's a perfectly reasonable behaviour because it's based on this bit of data, or this idea within living species. Just enjoy it.
I'll try and bully him. That's what I'll do, and we'll literally do that, and it'll be great because I'll be like, "Is that real?" And you can be like, "No, it's CGI." Is that real? He'll be like, "I don't know because I haven't read the paper." Is that real? He's like, "Yes, that is definitely accurate." It'll be brilliant. You'll love it. Okay, I haven't read this, so hopefully this won't be rude. It's okay. Doctor Home with unlimited funds. What you'd concentrate your research on? Unlimited funds. He's got that already, guys.
I think so.
Imagine how many PhD students you.
Well, right, and that's what I think I'd do. So it is obviously a recent thing, but I'm going to come back to my recent behaviour. But the point I was just saying about the colour and the mummies and stuff like this, and the tooth isotopes. This is, I think, and I had some stuff in the book. I think there are areas where we are not necessarily that close, but we have the capacity to make a pretty massive leap in our understanding of certain bits of dinosaur behaviour. As in, the data is there, or the techniques are there, that if we applied this study and this study and this study and this study and worked out this and this and this and this and this, we could then bring this all together to answer that question or build this model of their biology. And we're not doing it. And I know why we're not doing it, because it's a much more complicated issue of exactly things like funds and people's interests. And just because you can work it out doesn't mean it's very interesting to anyone except you, etc. But
you've got unlimited funds now.
Right. But with something like unlimited funds, like really understanding the growth trajectory of Protoceratops, where I've written lots about Protoceratops. I think they're hanging around in groups, multiple different age cohorts. I think they're under huge sociosexual selection in terms of their frill development and communication and signalling and bloody blah. And we've got loads and loads of specimens, and we've got all these papers about things like growth and sexes and development and changes and like looking at the isotopes, what they're eating, and tooth wear to see what they're eating at different sizes and different positions. Let's do all of it, rather than going, we've worked out how to do this thing and we did it on T-Rex once, or we did it on Stegosaurus once. No. Let's literally get 20 PhD students and half a dozen postdocs, and let's nail every single bit of Protoceratops biology that we can. And as well as digging up a bunch more to do that, like, let's grind up a bunch of skeletons and work out the exact growth of every single bit of the bone for every single bit of the animal at multiple different sizes. Let's start correlating that body size data with the growth data, with the diet data, with the jaw shape data, with the tooth wear data, with the gut content data, and like really build up a picture of what they're all doing at different times. And all of this stuff, and then you start getting this real integrated animal understanding that we don't have. And then applying that to, right, all the different studies of living animals that are undergoing similar processes and might be doing similar things in similar ecosystems, to build up that side so that we can actually compare it. We can do this. It would just take years and millions. So give me years and millions, and this is the sort of thing that I'd do.
I think, Dave, considering you just went on about how the fact there's not enough Spinosaurs and nobody's digging for them, that was possibly the most tedious answer you could have given about Protoceratops is a boring one, surely.
Shush.
It is a boring one.
No, it's not, because we can actually say something meaningful about it, unlike Spinosaurus.
But Spinosaurus, we would know more if we had more of them. If we actually went to big digs.
So we might not find any, which is not a lot of fun.
But that is fun, because, you'd be wasting all your toys. Right, what am I going to do? Right, okay, here we go. Do you have any ideas? So many, of why sauropods disappeared from North America in the later parts of the Cretaceous? I know Allosaurus appears, but it seems to be the only one.
What?
I think it's because of this is Izzy, right? This is Izzy knowing stuff. I think it's because of this stump guy, right, eating all the babies.
Yes. I think there's a general idea of this kind of Cretaceous replacement of new plants, so new flora coming in, and then you're seeing in a lot of places, though in the southern hemisphere they do pretty well, the sauropods generally being replaced by bigger ornithischians, and so you get the hadrosaurs and the ceratopsians taking over, and the sauropods generally taking a step back. But that's about as far as I can realistically go, because I don't think we actually know that much about it. But even if we do as a whole, I don't, because I really don't do sauropods. So I'm struggling to say much more about them.
I like sauropods.
All right.
Okay, so here we go. Oh my goodness. Which one? That one.
No.
That one. Have you gotten the Jurassic World's Ceratops toy yet?
Yes, I got it about on the 20th. I dashed in and got one because I was hoping to try and pick one up in the sales, but I was worried they'd all sell out. So I did go and get one.
He's going to get it out on his phone
and
You can tell this is live because all of this usually gets edited out of the podcast.
No, I was really
notes,
pleased.
Making sure it's got the right name.
Oh, shush
Make
your
sure
face.
right dates.
Oh, I'm so slow on my rubbish old phone.
His phone is smashed as well. So
it works fine.
It works fine to show the children about.
Yeah, so I've made a little pile on my desk of all the models of species that I've named, which because theropods are theropods. There's 2 different Ceratoseucops, there's 2 different Zooxantheranus, and 1 Anchiornis, because people are only ever going to do the biggest, sexiest theropods, unfortunately.
Other people have like a shelf full of books, and he's got it full of...
But yes, it's like. But also, we named 2 Spinosaurs in the same paper, and now there are 2 models, and they're both of the same one. Why has no one done Reparovenator?
There you go. This is the responses you're getting, Dave. Everybody thinks that is absolutely brilliant. Okay, here we go. If you could click your fingers and magically find any dinosaur or pterosaur fossil, which one would you like to find? I'm thinking the missing link or an answer to a big question type of fossil.
I mean, this I will go back to Spinosaurus because their
arms.
There were just so many. I've been part of this massive back and forth about just how aquatic was it or wasn't it, and ultimately, so many of the questions come down to we haven't actually still really got any good fossils. Like the originals are lost. The Neotype, as it's called, the one from Morocco, has certain questions over it. I think it is fair to say, because there are questions over how it was found, there's questions over what's come out and some of the studies that's been done and the way it's been restored. And I'm not like, oh, it's definitely right or it's definitely wrong or anything like that. But there's always going to be uncertainties with this kind of stuff. And there's actually still a taxonomic and therefore ultimate evolutionary ecology question, because the original stuff is from Egypt and this new stuff is from Morocco, and those are not necessarily the same time and same place. So not even getting greedy with and with soft tissue and everything else on it, but just there's that absolutely insanely good, I'm trying to remember if it's Albertosaurus or Gorgosaurus. We'll say it's Albertosaurus. It's in the Royal Tyrrell Museum, which is here everywhere. It's in the epistoponic posture with the tail back over the head. And it's basically in 3D with basically all except 2 ribs, half of 1 foot, and about 3 tail vertebrae and a tooth missing. It's essentially 100% complete.
One of them.
A Spinosaurus skeleton from Egypt, from the same site that Stroma was in, I can't remember who dug the stuff up and sent it to Stroma, but that site, one of them that was definitively the same Spinosaurus because it's got similar shapes in the vertebrae and the other details that we do still have from the original description. Then we can stop arguing about, because we're not sure if the ribs are quite right, and we've had to borrow the arm from there, and the neck's from Sigelmassasaurus, but some people say Sigelmassasaurus is Spinosaurus, but some people say it isn't, and then we've had to restore the vertebrae from 4 different specimens. No, this one, we can just measure this one and study this one and see what it can do, and use that as our foundational reference. That would be really handy about now, given the last decade on this animal.
I would like to find, and there's no way you could prove that you found it, right? But I'd like to find the last non-avian dinosaur to survive the KT extinction and know the date that it was
that'd
killed.
Be quite nice.
That'd be really...
Because they absolutely made it over the line somewhere. There is going to be an island or a random bit of the proto-Himalayas or a lost desert in Australia where they were around for hundreds of thousands, if not tens of millions of years. Yeah, I'm very sure in the same way that aardvarks are still around and platypus are still around, there's going to be oddities that cruised on for a very long time, just in an obscure place. One of them would be pretty cool.
And I want it to be an Alvarezsauri day.
Well, right, yeah, but as something that's uncontroversial, like definitive Alvarezsaur or Therizinosaur or sauropod,
That'd
like
be cool.
Some dwarf island sauropod, it's perfectly plausible, was knocking around on the equivalent of Ascension Island for another 20 million years.
Okay, this is a behavioural question, so I think if I can find it, there we go. Tom wants to know a question about megatheropod hunting techniques. So we're talking about these bad boys. I struggle to see how they could have been ambush predators given their size. Is a speculation on hunting behaviour we don't see in nature? Because how are you meant to... I mean, this one's quite small. But this very big, how is it meant to ambush anything? It's huge.
So
how big were trees?
I don't think they're going to be doing anything truly novel, because if you look at the range of predatory behaviours among even just some stuff like modern terrestrial carnivorans, lions are operating very different to leopards, different to tigers, different to lynx, different to cheetah. So you've got a huge range of group and solitary behaviours, and speed versus endurance versus trees versus cover versus yada yada yada, and then targeting different sizes and all the rest of it. So I doubt beyond the actual physical grappling when you come in, because again, an allosaur is built very different to a lion or a hyena. Like the actual how do you get close enough to do that attack thing? I don't think dinosaurs are going to have done anything truly novel. I don't think there's enough opportunities out there for something truly different.
But Spinosaurs definitely attack from above with their feet in the water.
Right. But for things like, the question is, what do you mean by ambush predators? This goes back to a very common theme of mine, so those who haven't heard this 20 times already, strap in. But like, people are really, really bad at defining terms and what they mean. And this is a classic example, because most things to a certain degree are ambush predators, in the sense that at least part of their behaviour involves getting close to things without them knowing that they are there. And that can be a snake sitting still or a frog and was waiting for something to come past it and then going at it. Or that can include something like a cheetah, who is absolutely a very limited distance, very high speed, what you call a pursuit predator, but cheetahs spend a lot of their time cat crawling as close as possible, because getting as close as possible is really important. So they're still at some level an ambush hunter. So a snake that just sits still, or a frog that is only stationary, versus a cheetah, which is the fastest thing on land, are to both, to an extent, an ambush predator. So that's a really important point of like defining terms, or at least what context are you thinking in. Were there theropods that primarily acted much more like stuff like snakes, where they're basically, as you say, mega theropods, stuff that's a ton plus, that were basically sitting still and waiting for something to almost come past them? Probably not very much. Some of them are obviously going to be able to take opportunities of that occasionally. If there is a dense forest and accessible water, and you can grab a spot nearby and leap out at something that's got its head down, you're going to make a living out of that, particularly for an environment where animals have to go there. You can see videos of the classic zebras and wildebeest coming down to drink, and they're watching the crocodile get closer. It's not like they don't know it's there, but if they don't drink, they're going to die. And if there's 50 of them, the odds are it's not going to be you, particularly if you're keeping an eye on it. So there's absolutely opportunities for big theropods to do stuff like that, at least on occasion, even if it's not habitual behaviour for many of them. But there are some fairly basic things you can do. One, as I've said this for tyrannosaurs, just to be nocturnal. Animals do not see as well at night. That really helps, even if you're very, very big, particularly if it's a really dark, stormy night. If you live in some kind of humid environment where there's lots of clouds regularly, night can be really damn dark.
And it helps you with your hearing. My cat Susan, the only time she's ever caught anything, which is mice at night, because it's raining, and she comes in soaked.
Yeah.
So, and that's because they don't see a hear coming.
It's a visual distraction. It's an audio distraction. It will stop scent moving.
And T-Rex have got big eyes.
Yeah, so you're living in a very, very wet environment. That's going to help. The other thing is, don't rely on ambush. Do something that's much more like hunting dog or spotted hyena, which will absolutely sneak up on stuff if they can, but they will absolutely just wander around until they see an opportunity, and then the fact that they're endurance predators is what they're really going for. And of course also the other thing, again, real world systems, that classic narration that you get on all of these things, it's like it's the old and the sick and the young. You don't need to be some amazing super speedy or even super endurance Allosaur or Ceratosaur or Tyrannosaur if someone's got a limp, because they're just not that quick. And that may be all that you really need a lot of the time.
Okay, very important question from James. From Ellis, who is 8. Hello, Ellis. That's a good age. Perfect age for the time machine next doors. Anyway, also asked, did any dinosaurs regrow their tails or limbs like geckos or sea stars?
Short version, no. So we do have evidence of this in a bunch of other prehistoric stuff. There's a particularly fantastic. I'm trying to remember exactly what reptile group it belongs to, but there is this small lizard-like thing. I don't think it's a true lizard. I think it's another different group. But anyway, from the Solnhofen, which you've mentioned many times, where so many of the great pterosaurs are from and Archaeopteryx is from, where there's this beautiful, beautiful skeleton. And with like the soft tissue outline, it's a little lizardy thing about yay big, so it's at 30 centimetres. And there's the animal, and then the tail grows up, and then the tail stops, or at least the bone of the tail stops. But you can still see the outline of the rest of the soft tissue of the tail. And under UV light, the cartilage shows up for the rest of the tail. And that's a classic example, because lizards and things like that have lost their tails, when they can regrow it, it's very cartilage, but it doesn't tend to turn into bone afterwards. So they have a bone-like tail, but they end up with like this fishy skeleton. So there's a brilliant example where it like definitively grew back. And so we do have a bunch of examples like that, but we don't have it for dinosaurs. And again, we talked about the extant phylogenetic brackets, so the living animals that are the closest things. Crocodiles don't appear to be able to do this, and birds don't appear to be able to do this. So it was not a surprise that dinosaurs don't do this.
Okay, a very important question from Robin. This is from Thomas, different Thomas. Age 8 months.
8 months? Oh boy.
Yes. In my book, Robin, well done, Robin.
It's on the typing, yeah.
Where's Mrs. T-Rex? There is what looks like a pterodon. Pteranodon, sorry. On the page with Stegosaurus. Stegosaurus. Obviously, it can't be a Cretaceous species, so what pterosaurs were present in the Morrison Formation?
So we've got a couple. I am now desperately trying to remember the name of the one that I saw when I was in Morrison last year.
Any Quetzalcoatlus?
No. That's only Cretaceous.
So
then I don't think we've got any pterodactyls. We've got pterodactyloid footprints, so they're almost certainly around. Off the top of my head, other than a handful of like properly random bits that are definitely pterosaur, but what the hell they came from, we don't know. I think there's like 2 not awful skeletons that are still pretty incomplete. And my memory is that they're something close to Rhamphorhynchus and Dorygnathus. So they Harpactognathus, that yes. Which Harpactognathus I'm fairly sure is a Rhamphorhynchine. So very close to Rhamphorhynchus. So quite large fish eater. After that, not a lot. But that's an absence of evidence problem. I'm sure the Morrison was full of pterosaurs. There's loads and loads of footprints in the right fossil beds, so they're definitely around in good numbers. Just the kinds of rocks that are good for preserving sauropods are not the kind that are good for preserving tiny, fragile pterosaur fossils. So I think they're just not turning up.
So we've got a question from Duffy Dastardly Doodles. Is it only carnivorous dinosaurs that had feathers? Were there any defining factors as to whether a dino had feathers or not?
Ugh, I think is the short answer to that.
Basically,
Yeah.
it's the ones on the Saurisian side, which include. Hang on, I've got to find my thing. So it's these ones and these ones, those ones. These ones had feathers. These.
Yeah, but right. So it's yes.
Also, these ones, which aren't dinosaurs, had proto feathers.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So that right. This is so. The short version is of the theropods, of the carnivorous two-legged dinosaurs. About half of them, the more derived later half, pretty much definitively all had feathers of some kind or another. That bit's quite easy. Probably a decent number of the earlier theropods had them as well. We don't have definitive specimens with feathers preserved on them, but a bunch of studies about their physiology, the environments they were living in, and other things all suggest that they did. You then have a couple of the ornithischians, so there's a couple of things actually close to ceratopsians, and a couple of much earlier ones that have filamentous, definitively have, like, this is absolutely definite, proper, soft, real soft tissue. It's not a plant, it's not confused with anything else, it's not degraded collagen fibers or any of the other stuff you'll see occasionally. These are real, genuine filaments on the bodies. And then the pterosaurs have something similar. Whether that is one origin or two origins or three or more origins of these things is really not clear. I think some people are very confident with answer A and some people are very confident with answer B, which tells you that on average we don't actually really know. And therefore whether or not you might call these things feathers from an evolutionary standpoint is again something that certainly I'm not overly comfortable with.
I mean, you got the was it Triceratops with the little sort of like spiky bits that
allegedly there's a alleged Triceratops. Well, there is a Triceratops specimen that has these really big scales in the back. So there's like big ones surrounded by lots of little ones, and then it supposedly like raises up to a little like point, and then it was suggested that that turned into a filament. But given that the tops of all the points are broken off, quite why you definitely think that it could turn into a filament is really very unclear. And to my knowledge, that's still just a conference abstract and they never got round to writing it up. Oh. It may even be a private specimen. Oh. So that's an idea that's out there. It's not a terrible idea, but again, one paragraph abstract from 15 years ago of a specimen that no one else has seen is not exactly definitive. They were fuzzy like that.
Okay, let's go back to we've got that's when we've done that one, that one just says
yeah.
So we have here's one. Hey Dave, when you did the research for uncovering dinosaur behaviour, was there something within ethology that you have never thought / considered about regarding dinosaurs? He thinks all the time. He thinks dinosaurs day and night. There's nothing Dave can't think of.
Nothing off the top of my head.
See, told you.
Probably because I have spent a lot of time thinking about this.
He didn't consider Allosaurus running cigarettes with its long arms.
No, but that's also not in the book. Okay, so
that's fair.
I wouldn't have thought of it whilst writing the book.
Should be in the book.
Which was the question that was asked. I'm increasingly aware as I think about this just how egotistical that sounds. But I've genuinely spent an awful lot of time thinking about dinosaur behaviour and what living behaviours we can and can't apply to it for literally years before I even got the commission to write the book. This is something I'm sure some of my colleagues have devoted similar amounts of time, but like this is something I've really, really thought a lot about. And so there's nothing. Also, bear in mind, I wrote most of the book about 3.5 years ago. So quite what I did or didn't read at one point that I had or hadn't thought of at the time, I'm afraid it's a bit late to ask me. So not off the top of my head, no.
Do you want to answer that one about other people's books, or should we not?
I can try.
Let's have a go at this one. So this is from a different. I think this is like the. Oh no, it's the same James with Ellis, although Ellis was the last. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Yeah. So, afternoon and happy Christmas. Happy Christmas, James. After the fabulous Uncovering Dinosaur Behaviour, did you know that Dave's written a book? It's called Uncovering Dinosaur Behaviour. It's very good. You should read it. What other grey literature books on paleontology would you like to write or think that would be beneficial to exist? What is lacking from the local Watersons or indie bookshop? Well, I mean, the one he's writing at the moment is probably good.
Yeah.
Probably want to write that.
Well, so for those who don't know, there are some like divisions. So I have written what I would call popular science book, which is really accessible to the general public. Anyone kind of 12, 13, 14 up who is into their science should be able to read it. And even if they don't know very much about dinosaurs already, get through it and really get something from it. It is a book for the intelligent non-expert. You've got proper academic like textbooks, super detailed, technically written, assumes a very high level of starting knowledge. You really should be a science student at a university, and ideally like postgraduate or PhD student or academic to read these works. And then grey literature is basically between the two. So, and that's what Uncovering Dinosaur Behaviour was intended to be, or at least I intended it to be on the even academic side of that, and then was asked to tone it down later, which was a point of contention after I'd written the book, after they'd agreed what the title was. You know, it is intended that you come into this being not like a dino fan, but like you have technical knowledge. You are coming into this with, you are an undergraduate or even postgraduate biology / paleo student before you start reading it. Yeah. That doesn't mean that it's not accessible, and the fact that I've had lots of really nice reports from non-experts who thought it was just another pop science book like my previous ones have gone, no, it was tough read in places, but I basically got it, was really, really nice. But grey literature's kind of rare for that obvious reason, because if you're capable of writing a technical enough textbook, you might as well write a textbook. And if you want it to be generally accessible, you generally write popular science. So it is a bit of and there's always the risk with these that it kind of falls between two stools and is neither one thing nor the other. And there's not too many books like that. The obvious one I think of is, it's really old now, but it's not that out of date. Peter Dodson's Horned Dinosaurs, which I always thought was kind of a bit like mine. Kind of, I think it was presented as a popular science book, but I think it's written at a much more technical level of that. But it's definitely not a textbook, so I would call it grey literature, which is really, really good and really engaging. It's obviously dated a bit because it was out in the late 90s, early 2000s.
No one was alive then.
You can still get it secondhand, but like the fundamentals of ceratopsian biology are still in there, and it's still dead right. I think the other obvious one is a book called The Complete Dinosaur. I've written a chapter for the 3rd edition, and it was supposed to be out before now. I've hassled the editors several times for an answer about when it might come out. The 2nd edition is still available. It's not bad. A couple of bits are really quite bad, if I'm honest. I had 1 or 2 chapters. I definitely had a chapter in the 2nd edition. The good stuff was very good. The bad stuff was bad. I think with a change of editorship and a change of direction and some new authors, I think the 3rd edition is going to be really good. It's a shame it hasn't come out yet. You know, these big volumes, it's going to be a big, fat book. It's going to be like 20, 30 chapters written by 40 or 50 people around the world. These things take forever. I do understand why it's late, but that should be coming at some point. And that should really serve as a nice kind of catch-all dinosaur biology, but a clear big step up from, I've been reading lots of popular dinosaur science books, and now I want something much more advanced. Should be the one, but of course it's not out. I don't know when it's coming out.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, we've been talking, well, Dave's been talking, I've been mucking about, for about an hour now.
Oh,
so
God.
we're going away. We're going away because I need to cook some food. But thank you so much for supporting. If you're interested in dinosaurs and you just stumbled on this, we do a podcast. It's called Terrible Lizards. You stop from the beginning, go all the way through. You're going to learn everything you need to know, aren't they, Dave?
Yeah, possibly.
I'm gonna try and get him to roar. He's not going to, but I'm gonna try in a ho 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 type style, and then we will end this wonderful live stream. Thank you so much for watching. You guys are awesome. Check out our Patreon for extra bonus content, and it's lovely to see you all. So after 3, Dave, we're going to rah. 1, 2, 3. Rah. Oh come on!
I did the action.
Did you?
Yeah. Sort of.
Oh my eyes shut. I was too busy roaring.